This is a quick and easy crash course on the entire history of Israel. In the shadow of ancient myths and whispered promises, the Israelites began their journey from bondage in Egypt, led by the enigmatic figure of Moses. The wilderness stretched endlessly before them, a barren land filled with both danger and divine encounters. As they wandered, tales of a promised homeland fueled their hopes, a land flowing with milk and honey, yet fiercely guarded by mighty cities and hostile tribes. With Moses gone, Joshua took up the mantle of leadership, a man as relentless as he was faithful. His first test came at the formidable walls of Jericho. The city stood impregnable, yet Joshua did not rely on mere swords and spears. Instead, he followed a cryptic command. For 7 days, the Israelites marched in silence around the city, the air thick with tension. On the 7th day, with a single shout and the blast of trumpets, Jericho's walls crumbled to dust, and the Israelites stormed in, claiming their first victory in Canaan. This was only the beginning. The scattered tribes of Israel, once loose confederations, began to unify under the threat of external enemies. The Philistines, a fierce seafaring people, challenged their very survival. It was in these desperate times that the Israelites called for a king, and Saul, a towering figure of strength but plagued by inner turmoil, was chosen. His reign, however, was fraught with strife, and his inability to quell the Philistine threat led to his downfall. On the blood-soaked fields of Gilboa, surrounded and defeated, Saul chose death over capture, ending his tragic rule. In the wake of Saul's demise, a new leader emerged, David, a shepherd boy who had once faced a giant and won. David's rise was marked by cunning and valour, and he quickly became the unifier of the tribes. Jerusalem, a city of ancient roots, was captured and made the capital, its walls fortified by David's soldiers. Under his rule, Israel became a formidable power, its borders expanding through military might and strategic alliances. But David's life was far from peaceful. His own family became his greatest challenge, as betrayal and rebellion festered within. Yet, despite the internal strife, David's reign laid the foundations for what many would call Israel's golden age. David's son, Solomon, inherited the kingdom at its peak. Solomon was a man of wisdom, renowned for his judgments and the splendor of his court. But his most enduring legacy was the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem, a monumental task that took 7 years to complete. The temple, built to house the Ark of the Covenant, stood as a symbol of Israel's covenant with their God, a beacon of their faith and power. Yet Solomon's reign was not without its shadows. His numerous marriages to foreign princesses, his vast building projects, and the heavy taxes he imposed sowed seeds of discontent. As Solomon's grip on the kingdom loosened, the unity his father had fought so hard to achieve began to unravel. Upon Solomon's death, the kingdom split asunder. The northern tribes, weary of heavy-handed rule, broke away to form the kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam, while the southern tribes remained loyal to the Davidic line, forming the kingdom of Judah under Rehoboam. This division weakened both kingdoms, leaving them vulnerable to the empires rising around them. The Assyrians, a fierce and relentless force, descended upon the northern kingdom. In 722 BCE, Samaria, the proud capital of Israel, fell to the Assyrian king Shalmaneser V and his successor, Sargon II. The Israelites were scattered, exiled to distant lands, their fate sealed as the lost tribes of Israel. Only Judah remained, a solitary beacon of the once great united kingdom. But Judah's time was running out. The Babylonian Empire, led by the ruthless Nebuchadnezzar II, set its sights on Jerusalem. In 586 BCE, after a brutal siege, the city's defences crumbled. The Babylonians stormed Jerusalem, and the first temple, the heart of Israel's faith, was reduced to ashes. The people of Judah were exiled to Babylon, their cries echoing in a foreign land, their future uncertain. Yet amid this desolation, a glimmer of hope emerged. The mighty Babylonian Empire, once seemingly invincible, fell to the rising power of Persia. Cyrus the Great, the Persian king, issued a decree in 538 BCE that would change the course of history. The exiles were free to return to Judah and rebuild their temple. The journey home was fraught with both joy and sorrow. The land they returned to was a shadow of its former self. Jerusalem, the city of David, was little more than a heap of ruins. But the returnees were undeterred. Under the leadership of Zerubbabel, a descendant of David, and the high priest Joshua, they laid the foundation for the Second Temple in 516 BCE, a symbolic act of rebirth and renewal. The new temple, though less grand than Solomon's, became the centre of Jewish life, a place where the exiles could reconnect with their past and their God. The following centuries were marked by foreign domination and internal strife. The Persians ruled with a relatively light hand, allowing the Jews a degree of autonomy under their own religious leaders. But the shadow of empire was never far away. In the 4th century BCE, the world shook with the arrival of Alexander the Great. His conquests swept through the Near East, including Judah, bringing with them the influence of Greek culture, Hellenism. After Alexander's death, his empire fractured, and Judah found itself caught between the warring successors, the Ptolemies in Egypt and the Seleucids in Syria. Under the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the situation reached a breaking point. Antiochus, in a bid to solidify his control, imposed harsh Hellenistic reforms on the Jews, desecrating the temple by dedicating it to Zeus and banning key Jewish practices. This provoked a furious response. In 167 BCE, the Maccabean revolt erupted, led by the priestly family of the Hasmoneans. Judas Maccabeus, the most famous of the brothers, waged a guerrilla war against the Seleucid forces, achieving a series of stunning victories. By 164 BCE, the Maccabees had recaptured Jerusalem, cleansed the temple, and rededicated it, an event commemorated by the festival of Hanukkah. The victory of the Maccabees established the Hasmonean dynasty, an era of Jewish independence that lasted nearly a century. But internal divisions and external pressures soon began to take their toll. The Hasmoneans, originally champions of the faith, became embroiled in power struggles, expanding their territory through force and adopting increasingly Hellenistic practices, which alienated many of their supporters. By the 1st century BCE, Rome had risen as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. In 63 BCE, the Roman general Pompey intervened in a Hasmonean civil war, capturing Jerusalem and incorporating Judah, now called Judea, into the Roman Empire. Roman rule was initially indirect, but as resistance grew, the Romans appointed Herod the Great as king in 37 BCE. Herod, a master of political maneuvering, sought to placate his Roman overlords while also appealing to his Jewish subjects. He embarked on grand building projects, most notably the expansion and renovation of the Second Temple, transforming it into a magnificent structure that rivaled Solomon's in splendor. In 70 CE, Jerusalem fell to the Romans, and the Second Temple, the Sacred Heart of Judaism, was reduced to smouldering ruins. The survivors were left with nothing but memories of a homeland lost. With the city in ruins, the Romans dispersed the Jewish population, sending them into exile. The Jewish people, now without a temple or a kingdom, faced an uncertain future. The Roman Empire, sprawling and powerful, became the backdrop for the Jewish diaspora. Communities sprang up across the Mediterranean, from Alexandria to Antioch, from Rome to Carthage. These Jewish enclaves clung to their traditions and faith, yet they also adapted to their new surroundings, navigating a world that was often hostile. In Alexandria, the Jewish community thrived, becoming a centre of learning and culture. Here, the Jewish philosopher Philo sought to harmonise Jewish teachings with Greek philosophy, creating a unique fusion of ideas. Yet, even in the midst of this flourishing, tensions simmered. The Jews were a minority, often mistrusted and occasionally persecuted, as in the brutal massacre of Alexandria's Jews in 38 CE. In 132 CE, the Bar Kokhba revolt erupted in Judea, a desperate attempt to reclaim the homeland. Led by Simon Bar Kokhba, the Jews fought with fierce determination, initially achieving significant victories. But the might of Rome was overwhelming. By 135 CE, the revolt was crushed, and the aftermath was devastating. Emperor Hadrian, determined to erase any memory of Jewish sovereignty, renamed Jerusalem as Aelia Capitolina and Judea as Syria Palestina. The Jews were banned from Jerusalem, and the diaspora deepened. Over the centuries, the Jewish people scattered further, their communities spreading across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. In Babylon, the Jews found a measure of stability. The Babylonian Talmud, a monumental work of Jewish law and tradition, was compiled between the 3rd and 5th centuries, becoming a cornerstone of Jewish life in the diaspora. Yet, even in the far reaches of Persia, where the Jewish community in cities like Susa and Nehardea flourished, there was always tension between integration and survival, between preserving identity and adapting to new realities. The Middle Ages saw a tumultuous history for the Jewish people, marked by both periods of relative peace and devastating persecution. In Spain, under Muslim rule, Jews experienced a golden age of culture and scholarship, contributing significantly to philosophy, science, and literature. Yet this era was not to last. The Christian Reconquista and the eventual expulsion of Jews from Spain in 1492 marked a turning point, as Jews were forced to flee to other parts of Europe or the Ottoman Empire, where they found refuge. In Eastern Europe, particularly in Poland and Lithuania, Jewish communities found relative safety and freedom. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth became a major centre of Jewish life, fostering a vibrant culture of learning and religious observance. However, this period of stability was shattered by the devastating Khmelnytsky uprising in 1648, which saw widespread massacres and the decimation of Jewish communities. The 19th century brought both hope and despair. The rise of nationalism and the spread of anti-Semitism culminated in the Dreyfus Affair in France, highlighting the deep-seated prejudices against Jews even in supposedly enlightened societies. In response to the growing persecution, Theodor Herzl and the rise of political Zionism sought to address the Jewish question by advocating for a return to the land of Israel. Herzl's vision culminated in the First Zionist Congress in 1897, laying the groundwork for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. The horrors of the Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazis during World War II underscored the urgency of the Zionist cause. 6 million Jews were systematically murdered in a genocide that shocked the world. The atrocities reinforced the need for a safe and secure Jewish state, leading to heightened support for the Zionist movement. In 1948, the State of Israel was established, fulfilling a dream long pursued by the Jewish people. The Declaration of Independence was met with both jubilation and conflict. The surrounding Arab nations rejected the new state, and the ensuing war marked the beginning of a protracted and bitter conflict. Despite the challenges, Israel thrived, building a modern nation in a land rich with ancient history. the decades since Israel's founding have been marked by ongoing conflict with neighbouring Arab states and the Palestinian territories. From wars and intifadas to peace treaties and negotiations, the struggle for security and recognition has defined Israel's modern history. Yet, through it all, the Israeli state has endured, a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. In the 21st century, Israel remains a complex and dynamic nation, facing challenges both from within and beyond its borders. The quest for peace and stability continues as the country navigates its path amid a turbulent and ever-changing Middle East. If you enjoyed this content, you may also like this video on the entire history of Peru,